Guys, what's going on? It is Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Hopefully this video finds you all doing well. Today, we're going to talk about uncommon champions that are actually viable. Let me give a quick disclaimer when talking about uncommon champions, because when I started playing this game, I'm sure like a lot of you guys too, I just kind of assumed really early on that, okay, anything uncommon or common is total trash. It's what I'm going to be using as food for my other champions, for my rare champions, especially starting out, or my epics. You can get commons commons and uncommons super easy just by summoning mystery shards, which you get plenty of in this game for free. So these champions, though, upon further glance, there's actually a few that are pretty good, these uncommon champions. And I was able to come up with 10 champions who are great team fillers, I'm going to go ahead and say. So what does that mean? What's a team filler? Why am I recommending these champions to you guys? Because, you know, what you're trying to do early on in this game and into the mid game is you're trying to build out these balanced teams that has all the key roles on a team that you want. Crowd control, some nukage, some maybe some speed, some debuffer, and some heal, some support too, right? So you're trying to get all those elements. And early on in this game, and again into the mid game, sometimes you just don't have a good, you know, debuffer on your team. You don't have a good poison layer for clan boss, and that's where you can fill in your teams with one of these very capable uncommon champions that I'm going to share with you guys today. They're very easy to upgrade compared to other rarities, so it's an easy kind of filler champion to serve a role on your team, will help you out in the early game, again into the mid game of Raid Shadow Legends, and then you can start replacing them as you get stronger, more difficult to upgrade champions, but they can serve that spot even while you're upgrading some of your higher rarity champions. So anyway guys, that is the disclaimer. That's but these champions are all solid for filling that one specific role. We'll talk about those roles as we jump into the list, so let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So I want to start out with, all things being equal, who I do personally think is, you know, maybe a tie for the best uncommon in the game. I'll save the other one for maybe the last champion that I share with you guys, because it's not in order. Again, these are all kind of role-based, so it would be a fool's errand to kind of rank them. Like, it depends if you need a poisoner, or if you need a nuker, or a support champion, or a crowd control. It depends on what you need, just like everything in Raid Shadow Legends. That's why someone asked on a video a few days ago, why don't you just rank them in order? Because it's incredibly arbitrary. It depends on what you need these champions for. But Shield Guard's kit, overall in a vacuum, is probably one of the best in uncommon. So anyway, on his A1 attacks one enemy, his damage is all based on defense, something you love to see from an uncommon champion. You can build them out to be very tanky and still put out a lot of damage because it does scale off their defense. You don't need attack percentage or attack stats at all when you're putting your artifacts on these champions, okay? On his A2 though, it's an AoE on a 2-turn cooldown. AoE on a 2-turn cooldown based on defense alone is actually really, really solid. There's not many 2-turn cooldown AoEs out there, even in rare champions, so to have one on an uncommon is great. Also fills this champion's turn meter by 20% on each critical hit. That's tremendous. So you're using that against a mob of 4 champions, 80%, as long as you build them with 100% crit rate, which you want to do on your Shield Guard, it's going to be 80% turn meter boost right out the gate, again, based on defense. So he's almost going to be able to keep going and going and going. Shield Guard's great. He has a passive too, which removes 1 debuff from his champion every single turn. Just a really, really solid kit for an uncommon champion. So next up is Fireblade. So Fireblade is a champion that I was not super familiar with, honestly, before I started this list. I'm gonna be honest, but she's actually serviceable early game clan boss, okay? So you can use her along with like an Outlaw Monk as your 2 poisoners on clan boss early on. If you don't have a poisoner, you can run Fireblade. She's great because on the A1, she has decreased attack for 2 turns, okay? If it's critical, which again, having a 50% chance of a decreased attack on the A1 is really all you need for clan boss to keep that up there, the decreased attack, which is the most important debuff against clan boss. So having that there is great. And then on her A2 here, on a 3-turn cooldown, attacks 1 enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 50% chance when she's booked out of placing a weak version 2.5 poison for 2 turns. So again, you can land 3 poisons, granted the weak version, on a 3-turn cooldown because it's each hit. So not a bad option if you lack that poison layer against Clan Boss, especially because she does have the decreased attack on her A1 as well. So I just mentioned Outlaw Monk. He's actually the only uncommon champion that I've totally maxed out in the game, and I will tell you what, he's definitely viable, only for Clan Boss, really. For Clan Boss, maybe the very early stages of Clan Boss. I would not take him into Brutal and beyond. You can usually have better poison layers at that point anyway, but Outlaw Monk is the most consistent, strong version of poison layer in the uncommon category. A lot of people starting out with Outlaw Monk use him in Clan Boss for that reason. So on his A1, attacks 1 enemy, 10% chance of granting an extra turn, and can be booked up to 25% chance. And then on his A2, on a 3-turn cooldown, places 2 5% poison debuffs on the target for 2 turns. That's a 100% chance of landing, providing his accuracy is high enough. So placing 2 of the strong version of poisons on a 3-turn cooldown, well, that's the best you're going to get in terms of strong poison out of an uncommon champion. So Barbarians actually have a few decent uncommon champions. We talked about Shield Guard, and hey, I said how tremendously rare it was in this game to have an AoE based on defense. We see another one here in Zephyr Sniper, okay? She has an AoE on her A1, which is great, attacks all enemies, and then has a 30% chance when booked out of increasing the cooldown of a random skill on each target by 1 turn. That's helpful there, and an AoE on an A1 is great, again, especially in the early game. And then she has a continuous heal on a 4-turn cooldown when booked on her A2, plays a 7.5 continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. So she's healing your team up. She also has an AoE on her A1. Definitely a serviceable support champion for the early game in Zephyr Sniper. So staying with the Barbarians here, we have Outlander, Spirit Affinity champion. Outlander's pretty cool because has an AoE kind of a CC type ability. So his kit, a lot of these kits are super simple, guys. It is based on attack. A 1299 attack is actually pretty decent for an uncommon champion. Attacks 1 enemy 2 times, very simple Savage Strike on his A1. On his A2, the Talisman of Power, attacks all enemies, and then has a 50% chance, 75% chance when he's booked out on a 3-turn cooldown. We talk about this a lot here on the channel, but 3-turn AoEs, especially ones that have kind of a crowd control effect on them like this one does, are very valuable in this game. So a 3-turn AoE has a 75% chance when booked out of decreasing the turn meter by 30%. Actually not a bad kind of crowd control type champion to have on your team if you're lacking that somewhere else in the game out of your rare or epic champions in Outlander. So next up is Dampier. Dampier is an undead horde champion. She's well, she looks like a, I don't know, vampire hunter or something like that, or maybe a vampire herself. Either way, she's a pretty cool look about her. She's actually decent for an option in spiders, and here's why. So A1, Death Blow. Attacks 1 enemy, grants an extra turn if the target is killed. So she can, in the early stages of spiders, she can just kind of blow through those spiders one at a time and continuing to proc extra turn, extra turn, extra turn. And then on the A2, it's an AoE attack on a 3-turn cooldown again, and then heals by 20% of the damage inflicted. So every time she AoEs in spiders, again, early game here to mid game, she's going to be healing herself all the way back up to full HP because it's going to be a lot of damage that she's putting out just by the sheer number of spiderlings. So not a bad option if you're struggling for kind of an AoE champ that can heal themselves without having to put them in lifesteal gear in the early game in Dampier. So the other CC champion that I talked about on this list is going to be Chanter. Now, Chanter is a great champion. He's actually a great champion if you can kind of farm some early game stun gear too. Could be solid in a stun set to make him like an ultimate CC for an uncommon champion, okay? Again here, if you're lacking that crowd control, consider Chanter. On an A1, by the way, his damage is based on HP. Again, what you love to see here with a pretty decently high HP at almost 19k for an uncommon, of course. So on Head Wound, attacks 1 enemy, and then has a 30% chance when booked of applying a stun debuff for 1 turn, again scaling off HP, a really solid A1 ability. On the A2, this is great. An AoE attack has a 40% chance when booked of placing a decrease attack for 1 turn, and also has a 40% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn. So the provoke is great. Put him in like a stun set if you want to. You have a chance at stunning, a chance at provoking. Provoke is a CC, a crowd control ability in this game. Very valuable debuff is provoke. All the opponents are going to be attacking him, and I lied actually. His A2 scales on attack. That's unfortunate, but you still want to build him up with a lot of HP. That way when you're landing these provokes, hopefully the decrease attacks as well, he's going to be able to have enough HP to tank for all those provokes landed. So War Chanter is a viable option, again, if you need that CC out of that provoke. So here's the thing, I wasn't sure if I should include Sniper on the list, because the problem with Sniper is this, right? She is a really solid uncommon champion. However, there is a starting champion that's just better than her in Elaine, right? So, I mean, it's rare to even need Sniper on any of your teams because you have Elaine, you have Kale. I mean, all the starting champions are so much better than her, and they serve a similar role, because the reason that Sniper is good is because she has a double hitter on an AoE here. So a double hitter with a decreased speed on a 3-turn cooldown, excuse me. The cooldown, thankfully, is at level 3, so much easier to book her out too. So a double hitter on a 3-turn cooldown is great. I talked about stun gear earlier. Again, if you can have access to stun gear in the early game, you put that on a Sniper. You don't have Elaine, put that on a Sniper. Well, it's going to be a great CC kind of ability. The 2-hitter, you know, against minions, you'll have a double shot at landing those stuns on every single mob. Also have that chance of landing the decreased speed. It's a good ability here. Again, the only knock on her is that, again, it's very repetitive to champions that are also easily accessible. But I did think she deserved a nod because she's really viable anywhere here, and her ratings kind of reflect that. It looks like a bunch of people, based on the reviews, looks like a bunch of people use Sniper in the early game as kind of a secondary nuker. You guys could too if you're in need of that on your team. Next up is going to be Squire. Squire is definitely an early game option here. He is a Bannerlord Force Affinity champion. He's not awful. He has just a very simple overhead swing on an A1, a single target hitter. His damage does scale off defense, which again, especially in an uncommon, is what I'm looking for here. Really not looking for damage that scales on attack unless they have other abilities that they bring to the table, such as turn meter manipulation, as we've seen. And the reason being is because you need to, these guys are too squishy. You need to build them with high defense or high HP to make them actually be able to live, be able to survive. So he has a 3-turn AoE. It's a reoccurring theme here on the video, and attacks all enemies, has a 40% chance when booked of placing a decreased attack for 2 turns again. So a great debuff on an AoE attack that's defense based is going to be, you know, the reason that you could use a Squire if you don't have a decreased AoE nuker on your team. Kind of definitely not going to be your main nuker, but if you can use him for the damage based on defense, he will stay alive for you as well. So that is Squire. So at the beginning of today's video, I said there's 2 champions that are kind of neck and neck for the best champion, and as I said in the beginning, I saved the other one for last. So the 2 champions that you really got to talk about in terms of real 6-star viability, go ahead and throw your resources into these guys, because these guys can actually be used, believe it or not, up until, like, we're talking about early game to mid game for the most of this video. These guys, Armiger and Shield Guard, can be used from like the mid game approaching the late game. They're definitely not, you know, no, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. No champion is end game viable. No uncommon or common champion is end game viable. But Armiger is probably the closest that you're going to get to it because he has an ability, turn meter manipulation here on the A1, damage based on defense, and then on his second ability, Lay to Rest, it's based on enemy max HP on a 2-turn cooldown. The Lay to Rest. Now, it doesn't hit as hard as Cold Heart's Heartseeker or the takedown ability from Royal Guard, but Armiger's, because it's based on, it scales on defense first, then enemy max HP, but still, it can hit like an absolute truck. Armiger is definitely yeah, I guess he's endgame viable, especially if you don't have a Royal Guard or a Cold Heart. Having a champion that attacks based on enemy max HP is incredibly valuable against bosses in this game. So as you start to tackle more challenging dungeons, a champion like Armiger, if you can keep them alive, which you can, because again, his damage is scaling off of defense, is going to be an important part of a lot of your teams, especially on a 2-turn cooldown. That's what makes the lay to rest ability even more kind of intriguing. So there you go, guys. These are 10 uncommon champions who can fill in as kind of like an essential part of your team if you're lacking those in other areas. I hope that this list you found it beneficial, useful. Maybe next time you pull one of these champions, you'll say, hey, I could actually use that on my spiders team. I could use that in wherever, you know, on my campaign team. All these champions can serve a role for you guys, but again, they are not OP champions. I'm not here to tell you these guys are incredible, you should all invest in them. No, they are spot fillers for you guys that can be viable into the mid game. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this list. Thank you very much for the support here on the channel. I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys and your family, loved ones are all healthy and doing well out there. And with that, we'll go ahead and conclude the video. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care, guys.